arms way up in a cast and set the hook on smallmouth bass, and then you'll understand. You gotta get your hands on a Shimano reel and a G-Loomis round. I bet you like what you feel. Step on the deck and give it a whirl. Hello and welcome to my world.
What's going on, Facebook and YouTube Live? Welcome to this episode of On Another Line Live. Today we're going to be talking about some must-throw spring baits that you need to have in your arsenal this spring, no matter where you're fishing. First and foremost, thank you guys for joining in here. I appreciate it very, very much. If you wouldn't care to hit that share button if you're on Facebook, I would appreciate it. So we can get some other like-minded fishing freaks in here. Had some reservations about doing the live show tonight. Got a lot on my plate, a lot on my mind, and a lot laying on my heart today. I'd like to not get into it, but hopefully if you guys could throw some good vibes my way, I would appreciate it. With that being said, again, thank you guys for joining this episode of On Another Line. This episode of On Another Line, as always, brought to you by people just like you out there. I appreciate it very, very much, guys. I've been seeing a ton of huge goals being broken on my YouTube channel. We're seeing weekly, checkpoints, if you will, so I can hit that 4,000 subscriber goal. And you know, we're chugging right along, which I appreciate it very, very, very much. You know, I'm right now 3,390 subscribers on YouTube, really driving to that 4,000 subscriber by the end of the year. Right now, it looks like that we're going to hit that, especially if I can keep producing content like I have been over the last few weeks that have been getting a lot of really good response. So I appreciate you guys out there. If you guys are just joining on YouTube, or you're just stumbled upon this on Facebook or whatever, if you guys would go over there and hit the subscribe button on my YouTube channel, I would appreciate it. It doesn't cost you a dang thing. It's free. The only thing subscribing to a YouTube channel does, it basically ranks our channel, but more importantly than that, we have the ability to, when I upload a video, you get notified. That's it. That's pretty much it. Them Wayne boys in the house. What's up, fellows? Andrew 6. Yeah, man, I hope so. I appreciate it. I'm really driving. You guys are helping me out. I appreciate it. Really nice day out today. Weather in Ohio and in this general vicinity is absolutely nuts. With that, so my birthday was Saturday. I woke up, I had like 350 people on my Facebook told me happy birthday. Huge shout out to you guys. 38 isn't so bad. No different than I was last week. Sinus was all screwed up because I live in Ohio. But Saturday, went out, got some dinner. Friday night into Saturday morning, woke up with 6 inches of snow in Ohio, and it was 75 degrees literally the day before that. Harleys were running around. They were zooming past me on 3rd Street in Ironton. Friday night into Saturday, grabs 6 inches of snow. I wanted to fish on my birthday, but that didn't happen. Mother Nature kind of crapped on that one. But it is what it is. It is what it is. So, guys, again, thank you guys for joining. Hey, Randy, what's up, buddy? Dude, Chris, where you been, my brother? Where you been, buddy? I ain't seen you in a while. Hopefully, thank you for the belated birthday wishes. I hope you and your family are doing well out there. Thank you guys very much. Anyway, we're going to spend this episode talking about some of the baits that I believe that I will never go fishing without in the springtime, and you shouldn't either. First and foremost, I want to tell you is that this channel at this point right now is not affiliated with any lure manufacturer other than Jackal, and I'm affiliated with Jackal through Shimano. Shimano is a distributor of Jackal products. So that's why I'm affiliated with Jackal. There's no, first and foremost, the things that I talk about on my channel, I do want you to understand there are no paid advertisements on this channel as of right now. Everything that I'm giving you as far as what you see on this channel is my absolute opinion, and it's, the stuff that I buy. And there's no like influence here as far as how much people are paying me to say what I like. You're going to see some crazy baits today that you may have never seen and some baits that you may have never heard of. But that's what it's going to be about. We're going to be talking about some of the baits that I feel like are, that I've caught some of the biggest bass in the springtime on over the last 10 years of my life. And I'm going to let you in on a little secret. Yeah, bud. I understand that. Sometimes life happens. What's up, Mr. Strickland? What's up, buddy? Hopefully you got out there and got to do some fishing today. Maybe not. I don't know. The river is still kind of jacked up, but looks pretty good. Spring break starts Good Friday, which is what, April 14th, I think. 14th, 15th. Nope, 15th. April 15th is when my spring break starts, Good Friday before Easter. And then I'm off the following whole other week there. So Easter Sunday is the 17th. I'm off the 18th there. But Easter Sunday, I'm going to church with my mother, which makes the 38th year I've done that in a row. I go to church with my mom on Easter, and then have dinner somewhere. But this year I'm going to do that, have dinner, and then Misty's going to drive me to Charleston to hop a flight to get down to Dusty's place in Huntsville, Alabama. And we're driving from Huntsville to Lake Fork. I'm sure you guys know that, but I'm getting ready to take one of the most absolute iconic, epic trips I've ever taken in my entire life. Right now, I'm getting ready to do a series it's a weird series to me, but I have all these rods. I got like 35 different combos that I can choose from, but we're taking Dusty and Terry Lee's boat. It's an 18-foot Ranger, nice boat, 18-foot. But I'm going to be a co-angler in the boat. Dusty's going to have some rods. I'm going to have some rods, but I don't want to overpack, but I don't want to underpack. So I'm going to try to do a video series on how I'm making my decisions on what to take. And it may help some of you guys out there that are thinking about jumping in as a co-angler. It's a good place to start to figure out what, to try to maximize the rods that you're taking, depending on the baits that you believe you're going to be throwing out there. Shoot, bud, I got a day and a half. I didn't even get a day and a half, I don't guess. So Saturday was my birthday, and Sunday at noon we're at B-Dub's eating, and that's her favorite place to eat. I could care less where we eat there again. It's good. It's good food, but Misty loves that place. So I got a lot. I got about, 28, 30 hours, which is all right. What's up, Matt? How you doing, buddy? About time to sling the old 10-inch float out there and smack a shovel head in the mouth. Your birthday is today? Or when? Bubblegum fluke. Absolutely hate the collar so much they kill it. So, man, I will tell you what. I started throwing bubblegum, and there's, what do they call that? There's like a methylate. Is that what methylate? Not quite pink, but it's like a pink and orange mix. They hammer that too. A pink Ned rig is one of my absolute favorite ones to throw. I throw it at St. Clair. I throw it here. I threw it at Yatesville the other day and caught fish on it. They absolutely love it, especially smallmouth. They will absolutely chew on those things. But one of the first lures I'm going to talk about is going to be a jig that you may or may not ever have heard of. And I personally, I'm looking here at their website, and I'm looking to see if I can find it. Maybe this pro has dropped them, which is weird. Oh, they call it something new. Apparently, the guy who they were paying to promote this stuff is not promoting it anymore, apparently. But it used to be called the Boom Boom Plus for Fred Rumbanis. It was Fred Rumbanis's custom jigs from this company called Pepper's Custom Baits. And I'm going to show you that really quickly. Again, keep in mind, no affiliation with this bait company whatsoever. So, all right. So again, this is Pepper Custom Baits. Again, this jig used to be called the Boom Boom Plus. It is an underspin jig of sorts Really tough for you guys to see here. I apologize. Maybe you can see here a little bit. There we go. Bingo. You guys should be able to see that fairly well. So what you have here is a nice, quality jig head with a wired or with a weed guard here. This is a fiber weed guard. Fairly decent hook. And then what you have here is coming directly off of the hook shank is an underspin sort of a willow leaf blade. A lot of different collars. My favorite one, and this is a weird story that I was looking at these things back when I'll think of it in a second. When Casey Ashley won the classic at Hartwell like 6-8 years ago on an underspin. So I found these somehow. I don't have a clue how I found it out, but I'm not sure that the collar is even here anymore because it was a weird collar. Maybe they've just, I'm probably missed it. So if you guys go back and look at this, no, I'm sure they've changed the name of it. It was probably something to do with Fred Rumbanus's. Again, this used to be called the Boom Boom Plus jig, but the collar was called, I swear it should be here somewhere. It probably is. I'm probably looking over it, but it was called Squeaky Dolphin. Squeaky Dolphin. Don't ask me, but just know the collar Squeaky Dolphin had this head on it right here. It had the chartreuse head. It was a chartreuse and white skirt with a silver willow leaf blade. And again, just to give you guys a better idea of what this, I think this is called a bluegill pattern here. But you can see that it has a really big willow leaf blade off of the back of it. This thing could be fished really, 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 really slow on the bottom, especially in these early spring months here in the area. I caught one of the biggest bass I've ever caught in my entire life on this jig, again in the Squeaky Dolphin collar, which was just it was a chartreuse. So it's a chartreuse and white head with a white weed guard, silver willow leaf blade, and the skirt is white and chartreuse. But, just a really nice swim jig, has an underspin feature to it, but absolutely caught some of the biggest bass I've ever caught in my entirety of my life on that. I got you, Matthew. Yeah, Chris, like I said, you can find other companies that make this thing. Heck, you can even make your own if you wanted to. Looks a whole lot like this jig that I'm working with right now as far as the do-up mold. This is a poison tail jig. You can make one of those out of it fairly easily. But that's one of the baits that I absolutely am going to have tied on in my boat at any given time. The reason that is because it's a swim jig by nature. So you could pitch that thing up and around brush and stuff. The fall of that thing with that under. So normally an underspin, especially if it's one that actually has like a wire underneath it, when it falls, usually that blade just lays against the body of the bait and doesn't give you much action. With that thing coming off the back here, you have a lot more action of that blade. So that's one of the things. So I picked up a bunch of them. I will tell you, I've thrown just about every color on the planet that they made, because when they initially brought them out, they were like $10. They were like $9.99 a piece. I thought it was fairly expensive for a jig, but I knew Rumbanus was getting some of the kickback of it. So anyway, I bought them. And did I ever buy them? I remind myself of like G-Man at the Bassmaster Classic when he's talking about the evergreen jackhammer or whatever, back when jackhammer just first come out. He's like, I paid $15.99 just like everybody else here does. So, and that's the same way with me. Again, I'm telling you this. I'm not saying that pepper jigs are the best. Matter of fact, I've never fished another one. But I'm sure there's other companies out there that make these things. One of the things that you're going to have to think about is that this bait can be fished in and around cover. You can also fish this thing very slow on the bottom, just ticking rocks and things and not get hung up, which is going to be another huge factor for me. I fish this thing parallel to banks a lot of times, especially banks that have cover, things that have rocks, things that have something that's going to draw fish to them. Again, this time of year when the weather is warming up and the water's warming up and all that other stuff, fish are going to be looking at transition banks. Again, I know you guys get tired of me talking about transition banks, but transition banks are going to be normally on channel swing banks where it's steeper and deeper, next to something where they're going to go up there and want to rub their bellies and make some fry. They're going to do some spawning up in there. They're going to stage on these points that have channel swings on them because, one, again, I've mentioned it before, it's easier for them to track prey without exerting a lot of energy. Keep in mind the fish are still a little cold. It's when it starts warming up, they're going to go up and spawn, but they do know, especially those females, they're going to try to feed up for that spawn. So those swing banks of the channel swing banks are perfect to look for. But with these things, that Boom Boom Plus or an Underspin jig, you could throw that thing out and actually, let it come at different angles or different depths on that channel swing bank. So also another cool thing about this is that you could make this action erratic just by changing the way you are spinning your reel. Obviously probably wouldn't be fishing on a spinning reel, but if you're consistently reeling this thing, it has one path back to your rod. However, if you're reeling and then you maybe reel a couple fast and then maybe you go real slow, maybe you just let it sink a little bit and you're just using the rod tip to actually make it mimic a bait fish absolutely destroy that thing. But again, as I was speaking to earlier, I've thrown just about every color jig that they have in that thing, and the only one I've ever caught fish on is the white and chartreuse one. Take that for what it is. Take that for what it's worth. I will tell you, when I caught those big bass that one summer, I threw that thing until my freaking arm fell off throughout the summer. And even into the fall is another amazing time to throw, especially when you get into that shad spawn. But I threw it all the time when I would throw like a normal spinnerbait, and it just didn't produce like it did in the springtime, the white and chartreuse one. Yeah, well, so throwing it up in heavy grass, I think you would be all right as long as the grass wasn't floating where it would get, spun around a spinnerbait. I think if you just picture it as a weedless spinnerbait, anywhere you would throw a spinnerbait that could be weedless, I would definitely chuck that thing in there. Again, if this was big enough and you were punching a mat that was thin enough, you could punch this thing through a mat and have that blade spin down before it hit the bottom of the lake, and it could produce some big bass. I personally can't speak to that because we don't have any place we can punch any kind of mats here in Ohio. If you're punching a mat, there's somebody, in a UFC ring, or your carpet has a hole in it. So that is one. The Underspin swim jig, we'll call that. That one I showed you is a Pepper Plus, or it's a Pepper's custom jig. And again, they were big with Fred Rumbanis. So that's why it was called the Boom Boom Plus. His nickname is Boom Boom. So that's why that was there. Sorry, guys. My allergies got me all jacked up here. The next thing that I'm going to be throwing in the springtime, you can bet your bottom dollar, is going to be a flat-sided crankbait. I've fallen in love with a flat-sided crankbait over the last few years. We talked about this on the last show. Talked about crankbaits that I'll never leave home without. I think that the Strike King 1.5 has done a number on crankbaits for me because it is absolutely one of the greatest crankbaits on the planet. You can pretty much catch fish from a half inch of water all the way down to 5-6 feet, depending on what you're throwing. But it's a great bait. One of the things that I don't enjoy throwing is that 1.5 deep. We had that conversation before. I think I think they didn't put enough engineering into it, and it is the only Strike King crankbait that I've ever got out of the package that will not run true. I don't care what you do to it. You have to. It's almost like having a Norman. Again, the Norman had Bill Norman crankbaits had the way to tune crankbaits on the back of that. That's because you had to. They're great crankbaits, but you have to tune them. Yeah. Catch them on the old eagle claw there, Matt. I know some guys that used to do that. Anyway, so with that being said, a crankbait, amazing. I do think that For what it's worth, you're going to see me throwing the new, and again, I'm saying this without throwing the baits. They may be terrible, however, I doubt it. The new Shimano Macbeth crankbaits, flat. So there's a ton of different Macbeth crankbaits out there. Which, by the way, if you guys are local to me, the Tackle Box picked some of those things that are just got them in stock today or yesterday. One of the two, I think it was today. They got some of the Macbeths. I don't think the flats are there yet. But I'll show you guys here that video again. Let me, or the screen, sorry. So here is a Shimano Macbeth flat. This is Ghost Shad. The reason I like these things right here is that it has the jet propulsion system in it, which is going to allow you to cast the thing farther. And I will tell you guys, I'm usually a skeptic when it comes to like integrated things within a bait because they normally break. They normally don't do what they're advertised to. For example, like, if you look at something like a bait that has a sound producing thing, something like a Livingston or something, I do think that those things work. But I also think they're kind of overpriced for what they are, because when the battery goes dead on those things, then it's just like any other crankbait. However, here, this thing has a weight that slides in here that allows you to cast these things farther. I will tell you that if you've ever fished a Jackal re-range 110 or 130 jerkbait, you will know that when you cast those baits, you will see, or you will hear, something that sounds like your line is snapping every single time. And for me, I think that's kind of one of those deals where it works and it is great. However, on the Shimano side of things, when you have the World Minnow 115, that thing has something similar into it. It's like, this jet boost here. It actually does allow you to cast the bait a lot farther. I will tell you, the 115 and the 110 re-range Jackal, there's a little bit of differentiation there, so take that for what it's worth. The 115 is just a slightly larger bait than the Jackal re-range 110. But I will tell you that I could cast that World Minnow a little farther than the Jackal bait. Take that for what it's worth. Could be just that the bait is a little heavier. It's not. I'm not saying that one is better than the other. I'm just saying that I could cast the World Minnow a little farther than I could the Jackal re-range. But the reason I like this bait right here is up on top of this, you can look directly down on it. First, one of the things that it has is a circuit board bill. The circuit board bill is going to allow for more dig on your crankbait. You're going to have less resistance on there, so it's going to have a lot more action. It's also going to dive a lot quicker and get down to the depth that you want to throw way quicker. The reason I like the flat side crankbait is it has a tighter wobble, and in the springtime, you're looking at those threadfin shad, you're looking at shad spawn, you're looking at, depending on what lake you're at, you could be looking at herring, there could be all kinds of different things. But if you look at a shad in the springtime when they're actually, or a shad anytime, their bodies only flicker back and forth. They don't like have this big giant wobble to them. They're not displacing a ton of water. So I think that's what this is mimicking. And it's weird to see it here because the collars the pictures don't do this thing justice. Let's see. I think it is this one right here. The clear green crawl right here. In person, this bait right here is a knockout. I love the orange paint on the bill. Kind of mimics the pinchers of a crawdad there. The back of these baits, now that I'm looking directly down on top of it, looks like it flares out towards the back, which probably adds a little bit more action. But a lot of different colors in here. Going to be throwing a flat side crankbait for sure. You can bet your bottom dollar on that. That's going to be somewhere that that's definitely a home run for me. Yeah, man, I hate to talk bad about great companies. Strike King lures are one of my favorite to throw. I will pick up a Strike King crankbait before I pick up any of them. If it's a deep bite, I'm throwing a 5.6XD, somewhere in that range. If it's shallow or if I think they're going to be shallow, I'm always throwing a 1.5, 1.0, 2.5. I even have some of the 8.0s that I've never thrown. I literally have 2 of them, and I've never thrown them. I'm going to take them with me to fork. I think fish will eat them around here. Just don't have confidence in them. That's right. Just mold it. Put you some lead around it and chuck it out there. I see that your dad's taught you well. Speaking of which, you guys went out and caught those shad in that boat. That was amazing to me. That's crazy. They were using live scope last fall. We're on the Ohio River and we're finding these shad in these big giant schools and we're throwing a cast net over it. And you could watch the cast net go down on live scope. And literally they had both live wells full of this bass boat, just absolutely slammed full of shad. That's pretty amazing stuff. So again, we've talked about the Fred Rumbanis Boom Boom Plus, or just basically a swim jig with a willow leaf blade on it. I think you could probably tie your own. There's probably a company out there that makes it to where you could actually create your own. One thing I do want to mention, I didn't have a trailer on that thing. I just threw just a straight swim jig with that blade on the back. Next is going to be some sort of flat-sided crankbait. There's literally hundreds of them on the market now. There are some that are handmade. They're going to be looking at some, like there's one out there that was really huge for a long time called the Dinky Donker. You can look on YouTube and find out how these things are made. They're handmade one at a time, balsa baits. A lot of your handmade stuff, like there's the Crank Boys or the Crank Brothers, I think, over in Ashland. They're still making that stuff. There's a lot of people in the area that are making these things. But most of these things, these customs are flat-sided crankbaits. Another one's really good. You have the Fritz side. There's the Fritz side 5, Fritz side 7. I like both of those. Are really good too. Spring crawl in the Fritz side crankbaits from Berkeley, I think, are going to be phenomenal. Like it was an absolute amazing. Let's see if I can find it. If I can find that collar. Again, it was a Fritz side. Let's see here if I can find it. Man, surely it's on Tackle Warehouse, but it's called Spring Crawl. There it is. Let me share my screen here. So here is the Spring Crawl in a Fritz side crankbait. I think this right here is an absolute phenomenal collar, especially in spring and dirty water. Doesn't have to be dirty water. I'd throw this in clear water. I don't think this is over the top as far as the collar goes. They had an actual natural light shining on this thing and not the beer, an actual light that shined natural light down on it. It was phenomenal looking. Aaron, you're right. So the Spro Little John is, where I would say one of the bigger bait manufacturers started making them. You're correct. I don't know. They may have started out that way. The one where I saw them again was just custom made crankbaits back in the day. But you're right. Spro came out with the first mass produced one. The Spro Little John is phenomenal. One thing that I've noticed throwing the Little Johns over the past few years is that you could get some of them out of the package and they will absolutely sound like they're about to come apart. They rattle so much, which I absolutely love. And then some of them, you get them out of the package and they hardly rattle at all. No matter how much you throw them, how hard you throw them, how hard they hit the water, how many times you hit the tree that you're casting with, it doesn't matter. I have some of them that are like legit, will sound like they're about, that ball bearing's about to bust out the side of those things, which that's the ones I'm looking for. Compared to the other ones, you can throw it, and again, you can hear the rattle, but it is nowhere near as loud as some of them. I guess it's just luck of the draw. First side crankbaits are phenomenal. So, Berkeley Fritz side crankbaits. Speaking of Berkeley, guys, I'm a huge Berkeley fan over the past 3 or 4 years. Throw a lot of Berkeley baits, especially talking about trailers. And we have the Little General now, which is like a Ned rig. And then, of course, they have the General, which is like an Ocho or a Cinco. Really good baits. I really love the flatworms for a drop shot. But Berkeley has a new jig out that actually has, the power bait scent on the actual skirt of them. And boy, do they ever stink. they smell just like power bait, but it's a jig made out of the stuff. Obviously, the head is going to be lead or tungsten. I would imagine it's going to be lead. But it does have that Berkeley power bait scent to the jig, which is I was at Greg's, the tackle box last week, and I was literally there for about an hour, and there was 2 guys that come in about 10 of those things a piece, went out to the parking lot, came back after they had opened one of the packages, and went back and bought 4 or 5 more. Yes, sir, the old flicker shad. I threw the flicker shad a lot. I think that the flicker shad, which by the way is made by Berkeley, it's very similar, in my opinion, to like I don't know, like a jointed Rapala. This one's not jointed. You can get a jointed one, but the Berkeley flicker shad is really good. Kind of reminds me of like a shad wrap from Rapala. But one thing that I think that's keeping the flicker shad on the market is the walleye guys. Chuck Dotson, that was on, that's my walleye guy in Lake Erie. He is he was throwing flicker shads for a long time. Not throwing them, he was trolling. They troll, but he was trolling flicker shads, which I thought was really cool. But you're right, flicker shad is a decent bait for the money for sure. So we talked about the underspin, talked about crankbait. One of the things that I will never, ever, ever, ever go without in the springtime is going to be some sort of jig, guys. You guys know this. I pour my own using Do-It molds. But if you don't want to do that, Tackle Box has a ton. But my favorite jig of all time, and I pour them myself now because I can, but I was buying them from Greg at the Tackle Box like by the fistfuls. It was a 3/8 ounce. I called it a finesse jig. It really isn't a finesse jig. Usually, less than that, 1/4 ounce or something less than that is going to be a finesse jig. I call it a finesse jig because my absolute favorite jig to throw in the summertime is a 3/4 ounce football head. Something like this thing right here. This is a 1/2 ounce. I'm throwing something bigger than that. 3/4 ounce is where my I love to feel the bottom when I'm fishing a jig, but my favorite jig to throw in the springtime is a 3/8 ounce football jig with a black and blue skirt, or my absolute all-time favorite, and I don't know that Greg has any or not. I haven't been up there. I still buy Greg, jigs from Greg just for the simple fact is I don't know where he gets his skirts from, and I don't want to ask him. I can just buy them from him. So there's a 3/8 ounce football head jig just like this with a wire weed guard in there, not a wire, a fiber one, just like normal. You would glue it in there. And it's a black jig skirt with silver specks in it. I've literally caught more fish in the springtime on that jig than any other bait that I've ever thrown in the spring, I think. One, because I have a ton of confidence in that bait, so I'm throwing it a lot. 2, is I throw it on some of the most high-end rods that I own in my arsenal, and of course I'm going to want to pick them up more often than not. My favorite rod to throw them on is going to be an NRX Plus now, 894C JWR, which is going to be a 4-power, 89 inches. Absolutely the best jig rod on the planet, hands down, in my opinion. If you're going to be throwing bigger than a 1/2 ounce, something like 3/4 to 1 ounce, you might want to step up to 895. But I will tell you, an 895 is an absolute broomstick. So be ready to get your hands on something that is a lot stiffer than any rod you've ever thrown, probably other than a frog rod. So again, a jig is going to be my absolute favorite in the springtime. I always have a jig tied on, guys. I don't care if it's January or to December. I guarantee you can get in my boat and find some sort of jig tied on, normally multiple jigs. Normally I have 2 or 3 jig rods in my boat. I am going to pick up a new rod that's going to be probably one of the new X Prides. It's going to be a 7.6 medium heavy for throwing something like 3/8 to 1/2 ounce jigs, so I can have that tied on as well. I really like that rod when I was up there messing with it at Greg's the other day. Super nice rod. Again, if you guys haven't saw that video, I posted a video today about 6 o'clock today talking about the X Pride B, which is a phenomenal rod for the price. They didn't raise any price from the last X Pride or the X Pride A, which now have a carbon handle on them. They do have they have a hook keeper, really nice cork. The CI4 reel seat, like you see, that's on the new NRX Plus, same reel seat. Really phenomenal real seat, one of my favorites. High Power X from Shimano, Fuji silicon carbide guides, you name it, it's on there. Like the rod that I reviewed was like $269.99, I think, and that's one of the most higher end ones. But if you guys are interested in getting your hands on an old X Pride, an older X Ride, it's not hurt by any means. I have a 7'2", I believe, medium heavy. I'll find out details tomorrow. I'm going to sell that baby. Just for the fact is I want a heavier action rod. It's a medium heavy rod, but the 7'2" was a little short. I was throwing a Carolina rig on it this summer, and it just absolutely is terrible for that. It's not meant for that. Don't throw a Carolina rig on it. But I'm going to be throwing a jig. You can guarantee it. Now that I've been throwing the weedless Ned rig that I've been pouring with the Do It Mold stuff, since I've been throwing that, that's going to be in my spring arsenal as well. I went fishing, what was it, President's Day weekend, somewhere in there. The earliest bass that I know of that I've ever caught on my channel was in February, this past February here. Caught two fish at Grayson Lake on a weedless Midwest finesse head pour with a Do It Mold jig, basically a Ned rig it's a new weedless version of it, which is an absolute amazing bait. And I've been throwing these little baits that I picked up some at the tackle box the other day. And it is a Z-Man Ned crawl, I believe it's what it's called. Yep, sure enough, find out exactly what it's called. I'll show you a picture of it. If you guys follow me on Instagram or whatever, you guys probably already saw this. But it's just a green pumpkin version of this bait right here. There it is right there. The old Ned crawl, really small. Like, I don't know how big they are. Let's see what it says here on here. Compact, tucked under scooting tail. Length 2.5 inches. That is from the end of here to here. Trust me, they don't feel like they're 2.5 inches. That's what I've been throwing on an Ed rig if I'm not throwing an actual Z-Man TRD. There's tons of different baits out there. That's definitely going to be something. Some kind of bottom contact in the spring is definitely going to be for me as well. And one of the baits that a lot of people don't throw, those baits that I just showed you, dude, I'm telling you, we went to Grayson. I went to Grayson the other day, caught 2 fish in February. First time I've ever done that. Usually it's way into March before I start catching fish out there. But I did catch 2 fish on that bait with those Ned crawls on there, or the Crawl Z. I think it's CRAWZ crawls. Really good bait. But then before that, the last tournament I fished was New Year's Eve on Yatesville, and I lost a Ned rig, and it's the only Ned rig I had in the boat. I had plenty of heads, but I didn't have any Ned baits. And my buddy Brandon Buckner had a package of those things. That's the only Ned rig bait that he had in his boat. I didn't even have a single Cinco that I could cut down into a Ned rig bait. Didn't have anything like that. I was just power fishing, and that's why, and then obviously you could tell that I wasn't power fishing much because we wasn't catching them. But I threw that Ned rig with that bait because he had one package of them. So I just hooked one of them on there, never thrown one before. And we absolutely smoked fish on them. We didn't catch any keepers. I think I've got one keeper on this thing, but it did produce fish when nothing else was. So there's that. Could be a fluke. Definitely could be a fluke. And I'm not talking about the bait. It could be the fluke that I caught fish on them, because let's all face it, if I find fish and catch them, it's kind of like a blind hog finding a nut. They find one every now and again. Kind of like G-Man says, got to get out there and swing on them. But next bait for me, again, this is going to dwindle down. A lot of them is going to be some sort of Texas rig, obviously. You can always throw a Texas rig, guys. I don't care what year, what time of the year it is, where you're at. You can always throw a Texas rig. I personally like to peg the weight. I hate using the word peg anymore. We live in a weird society. We live in a weird world. Yeah, Herb. It could have been a fluke, buddy. I've caught some fish, and I bought 3 more packs of them at the tackle box the other day, so you're probably right. I probably won't catch crap on them. But the TRD, they work great. But a Texas rig, for me, I like to peg the weight using a bobber stop. Again, guys, it's weird, again, coming to a situation where this is weird, but I was getting on Wish, the app that you never know if you're going to get things from or not. And you don't, when you get it, you don't know if it's what they advertise or whatever. But they had 1,000 bobber stops on there at one point for like $6 shipped shipped to my house from China. So I was like, shoot, man, for $6, I've wasted more than $6 on on a cup of coffee in my day, which I'm not proud of, but I've done that. So I was like, $6 is worth a shot. So I am a leery guy, man. I called my credit card called my credit card company and made sure that like nothing could happen there. They basically assured me as long as I used my credit card, not my debit card, they could always get the money back. They would just stop the payment or whatever. So that's what I did. And literally, dude, I thought it was going to be months and months and months later. It wasn't. I ordered them on Wish from China on like a Thursday, and like not the following Monday, but the Monday after that, I had them delivered to my door. And it was literally 1,000 of those bobber stops, and I'm using those things to this day. But I put a bobber stop on my line first, put my sinker on there, which is normally a 3/16 ounce tungsten head. I like a tungsten worm weight. I've been using EcoPro tungsten for the past few years. Pretty much the most economical for me as far as how much they are. I buy the Sportsman's Pack, which comes in, it's just a Ziploc bag, so you don't have to pay for the clamshell packaging. So that's where a lot of the packaging cost comes into. But EcoPro 3/16, quarter of an ounce. I don't throw anything bigger than that on a Texas rig. I just don't do it. Around here, I have more confidence on a 3/16 ounce tungsten worm weight, pegged or bobber stopped. And then depending on what size bait I'm using either a 3 to 5/0 offset shank worm hook. Again, 3/0 for smaller baits. 4/0 is my go-to. It's going to be about 90% of what I throw is a 4/0, but you always have that occasional bait that's too big, like a Magnum. In my opinion, a Magnum speed crawl is just too big for a 4/0. You got to have that 5/0. If you're throwing a big giant like 10-inch worm or something like that on a Texas rig, you're definitely going to want that 5/6/0 even maybe. Totally up to you and how you're throwing it. What's up, Chuck? We were just talking about you a second ago, buddy. We were talking about the flicker minnow and talking about how you guys were trolling them up north for a while. Pretty good bait for the money for bass as well. Which, by the way, guys, Chuck Dotson here owns Get Hooked Charters, Lake Erie, up in the Western Basin, up around Port Clinton area. If you guys are looking to get on a charter boat that's going to go out and put you on the meat, definitely look him up. Again, got 2 boats now, and they absolutely put you on the meat. Nice guys. Again, check them out on Facebook. Get Hooked Charters. Shoot me a message. Shoot Chuck a message. We'll definitely get you hooked up with them if you'd like to go out there and catch some walleye. They do perch trips and stuff too. Totally up to you guys what you guys want to catch. But I guarantee you're going to catch them. And so with that being said, as far as what I've been throwing in the springtime, that narrows it down to about 90% of what I'm going to be throwing. Some sort of crankbait, a jig, Texas rig, that underspin I was just talking about. One of the things that you absolutely cannot count out in the spring of the year is a jerkbait. This could be a soft plastic jerkbait like a fluke. It could be a hard jerkbait like, something like the Jackal Re-Range 110, the Shimano World Minnow, the Mega Bass 110, the 110 Junior, the 110 Plus, which dives a little deeper, the deeper diving World Minnow. There's all kind of ranges that you could throw in a jerkbait, but I can almost guarantee you if you are fishing near me in the springtime, you're going to see me pick up a jerkbait, especially on points and things that I think where things are going to be staging up at. In the springtime, guys, the colder the water is, I cannot stress this enough. A lot of people think that the water has something to do with fish movement. To a certain aspect, it does. If the water's super, super cold, they're not going to be moving super, super fast. However, if a fish is ready to eat and wants to eat, I don't care if it's 30 degrees, the water temperature, it's going to eat that thing. It's not going to take no for an answer. If it's hungry, it's going after it. It may not chase it for as far, but it's going to exert the same amount of energy within a certain distance to catch what it wants to eat. Because again, in the springtime, especially for female bass, from what I understand, I'm not a wildlife biologist. This is talking to people that are wildlife biologists. They say that, females are feeding up, obviously, because they know they're going to be on the bed for weeks at a time, at least 1 week, probably 2 weeks, depending on where you're at. 3 weeks, could be potentially. But they know that the times are changing, the days are getting longer. Full moon's going to happen there at some point, and they're going to get on the bed and they're going to start spawning, but they're going to start feeding up. But again, in the wintertime, if the water is super, super cold, am I going to be out there just ripping a crankbait? Probably not. I'm probably not going to be out there ripping a crankbait. I'm also not going to be throwing that jerkbait and absolutely just jerking the fire out of it. Zona, man, back on the days when first off, I don't have the outdoor channel anymore. The Dish Network wants to charge an uber amount of money for the outdoor channel, which I'm kind of, I don't know, bitter about. But anyway, I don't have the outdoor channel, but I used to like watching Zona just for the simple fact is that dude, he's a great talk show host, but he's also amazing fisherman. And he was fishing a warm water body of water, or warm water lake that was coming out of this hydro power plant. So it was heating the water up all the time, and it stayed like 75 to 80 degrees all year long, or hotter than that in the summertime. But he was throwing a jerkbait, and he was jerking the bait a couple times, and he was like, look, here's how you fish a jerkbait in the springtime. And it's still to this day, Kyle and I were on the boat in the springtime, we're throwing a jerkbait. We still look at each other and say this, especially if fish are very, very lethargic and not chasing. Jerk, check your email. He's like, jerk. Literally, he said, get out your Palm Pilot, get out your iPhone, whatever you're doing, check your email for a minute. Let that thing just simmer there. Let it just soak. 9 times out of 10, that fish is going to eat it when it's just sitting there, which is why I think the Shimano World Minnow is going to be in a class of its own. Because to a certain extent, when the bait stops moving, it has a thing in there called flash boost technology. It has 2 springs, and it has a piece of tin or piece of aluminum, basically foil in the center of it. And what happens is those springs cause that foil to move back and forth in the water, causing some flickering or a deflection of light from that thing. So you're going to get more action even when the bait is suspended. And I think that's going to be a huge game changer when it comes to that, especially if you're throwing jerk baits like that in really bright sunny days. Normally, if I'm throwing a jerkbait, it's going to be on one of those days, but there's going to be some wind and chop on the water. I very rarely throw a jerkbait on slick, calm waters when it's bluebird skies. That's just not my favorite time to throw jerkbaits. If it's overcast and slick, calm, I'm still throwing it. But if it's bluebird, skies, super clear day, super high pressure, I am not going to be throwing a jerkbait if it is slick, calm on the water. Yep, Chris, it's really tough to negate a jerkbait. Again, some of my favorites out on the planet right now. I think, again, the Shimano World Minnow is going to be a good bait to throw. One thing you're going to have to take into consideration that jerkbaits are always more expensive than any other baits. Don't ask me why. I guess because it's how they have to tune them as far as the research and development it takes to actually get these things to run as true as they do. Megabass is going to run you anywhere for 20 to 25 bucks. The 110, the Vision 110 is what it's called. I like the 110 size. I think the 115 size from Shimano and the World Minnow is going to be okay. It's not super big. It's kind of a happy medium in between that 110 and 130 size. I throw a Jackal 130 if I'm at a bigger body of water where I feel like the bait fish are bigger. And again, keep in mind, you're imitating bait fish you think the fish in that lake are going to be eating. So if you're not seeing shad that are 6 inches long, don't throw a 6-inch jerkbait. It just goes to say match the hatch when you can. Obviously, that's just the same as bass fishing in any realm or any genre. But if I were going to pick up a jerkbait that I have more confidence in on the planet, again, this is weird, man. Like baits come and go. My favorite jerkbait that has ever been on the market was a bait that Edwin Evers promoted about 8 years ago to 10 years ago. And it was made by Excalibur, and it was called the E Squared. Edwin Evers, it was this E Squared jerkbait. There was one called Bone White, and it was an absolute fish catching machine, dude. I won so many tournaments and placed in so many tournaments in the spring. One year, me and Kyle did using this bait. However, I think I know why they quit making them, because they were the absolute like most brittle baits on the planet. I don't know if the engineers didn't put enough time into it or what, but you would cast these things and they would have the absolute best. I mean, just the absolute chef kiss. It was the absolute, the action of it was on point. And the greatest thing about those baits is that most jerk baits, when you stop them, they will gradually nose up and float towards the surface. These baits would stop and gradually sink very slowly. But it also would get us in trouble, and this is why I was saying I didn't like those baits after the fact, is that your baits would sink, and your baits would sink maybe over top of a little rock or something you didn't know was there. When you jerk the bait again, 9 times out of 10, if it was anything in front of that bait, it would rip the bill totally off from it, and you would have a really nice keychain. There was one day fishing at Yatesville one day, me and Kyle went through 6 of them together, 3 apiece. They're $20 a piece. Kyle has 2 of them in his boat right now that he bought off eBay that were $20 a piece that he hasn't thrown, but they were my absolute favorite jerkbait and still are to this day. I've caught more fish on those jerkbaits than any other bait on the planet. Again, they're not made anymore. They're made by Excalibur. They are the E Squared crankbait, or the E Squared jerkbait, 110 size if I'm not mistaken. And also had that it was like bone white or pearl white. It was just an all white one that just absolutely caught fish. Since then, I think my favorite go-to jerkbait, barring that I haven't been able to throw the world minnow this much or as much this year, obviously, but I think the Jackal Re-Range 110 in pearl is going to be my absolute go-to. It is an absolute fish catching machine. If you buy one, I want you to understand that when you cast it, and I swear, if you cast it, you will know what I'm talking about. But you're going to cast it, and it is absolutely going to scare the bejesus out of you the first time you cast it. It still scares me, and I've thrown this thing 10,000 times probably. It has a weight system in it that will actually travel back and forth in the bait. So when you cast it, it's almost like it adds force to the bait to get it to cast farther. And I swear it sounds like your line snaps every time. If you rear back and throw a crankbait and you hear that, you automatically think that your lure is going over in the next county. So that's the first thing you're going to think of with that Jackal Re-Range 110 when you throw it, or the 130, any re-range bait. You're going to have to get used to it. It's my favorite one. Yeah. That's what I'm saying, Mark. Man, I get it. Like, bass fishing is not for the faint of heart. It is also not for, somebody that I was a penny pincher for a long time. Still am. I'm a high school teacher, guys. I don't make a ton of money. But it's so weird to me that baits cost $20 plus. I guess it's just the way everything goes, man. I own very little of the Megabass jerk baits. I do think that they work a lot. Another one that I really like is I've caught a lot of good fish on them. I caught a 4.5 pounder at Rocky Fork 2 years ago with my cousin Josh. It was a Rapala Ripstop jerkbait. I really like it a lot. They make one that is a Ripstop deep, I believe, and that's what I caught it on. It runs like 6 to 8 feet. It's home. It's where it wants to live. I like a deeper jerkbait. I don't like to see my jerkbait on the surface. If I can see the jerkbait on the surface, the water's either too clear, I'm throwing the wrong collar, or I'm throwing the wrong jerkbait. I don't want to see my jerkbait. If I'm seeing it, I'm doing something wrong. That's just my personal preference. You guys may throw them differently. Even at St. Clair, water's 10 foot deep. Usually where I'm fishing at, 10 to 15, you can see all the way to the bottom. It's crystal clear. If I could throw a jerkbait and I can see it, I'm throwing a different collar. I'm throwing something that's going to be a lot more natural, something that's going to, kind of blend in with the surface and get that actual reaction strike that I'm going to want. And again, don't count out the soft jerkbait as well, like a fluke, something like that. I heard somebody talk about it on my show last week. Banjo minnow, guys. If banjo minnow was still made, I'm not too proud of a man to tell you I would throw them, because I know when I was a kid and I threw them a lot because, hey, everybody said throw the banjo minnow. It was on every television show. We had Tommy Sanders saying, "Welcome to Bassmaster Saturdays," and then on those shows be like the banjo minnow. You know why we went out bottom? Well, here's the thing: very few of those gimmicks actually work. The freaking banjo minnow, yeah, that thing catches fish. Somebody make another one. Yeah, Mark. So that is, inflation sucks. I knew that we were going to get hit hard on all aspects of our lives. When it came, you can't just give out free money to everybody and not expect it to go up a little bit. However, I do believe it was needed. I'm not knocking the government. I'm, again, my podcast here is not government or politic related at all. But the way that stuff is happening so quickly around our ears and just seeing things go through the roof in price. And I'm not talking about gas prices, guys. Gas prices fluctuate all the time, man. It sucks. Like right now, diesel in my area is over $5 a gallon. But I have a buddy of mine that lives in California, sent me a picture the other day that gasoline, regular gasoline, was $5.58 a gallon. The diesel out there was like almost $7 a gallon. That is crazy to me. What I have a hard time understanding is, how do we as anglers or humans or citizens of the United States? My dad drove a 1973, I think it was a 72, 73, somewhere in there, Z28 Camaro off of the showroom floor of a dealership in Ironton, Ohio. Paid $6,800 for it, brand new, 350 turbo, 5-speed on the floor, Z28 Camaro, the top of the line Camaro at the time, $6,800. When you think about $6,800 right now, you can't buy a clapped out rust bucket that's been sitting on the side of 243 out here for 5 years and hasn't been started except with ether for $6,500. My fear is not for me, because I'm a grinder. I try to make every dollar that I can selling baits, doing YouTube stuff. I'm teaching high school. I have a lot of stuff going on. But my fear is that we are in a situation where people that are retired and on fixed incomes can never come back from. I couldn't imagine having to go to a tackle shop and see a $20 jerkbait and know that I could throw a $20 jerkbait, or I can put food on my table for that day. And that is, I'm very, very thankful that I'm not in that situation. And I pray for those people out there that are in that situation, and hopefully everything gets back to normal soon. And at the very least, if it doesn't get back to normal, I hope we can get out there and catch some fish, because for me, that's an absolute wind down moment for me. If I'm out there on the lake, if I go to a gas pump and I put $150 worth of fuel in my truck, in my boat, it's absolutely going to throttle me. Like, I'm like, oh my God, like, this is a ton of money. This is, 2 days work for me as a high school teacher. However, as soon as I drop that boat in the water and that hull gets wet and I fire up that big motor and I run around Grayson Lake or wherever I'm fishing, and the moment that fish picks up a bait and I get to jack its jaw and turn it back loose, is the reason that I am sane to this day. No doubt. Yeah, Chuck, and that's the thing about that's what I'm fearful about, man. Like, what's a convenience fee anyway? What the heck is a convenience fee? I know what I get the idea. Well, it's convenient for you to buy it, so we're going to give you a convenience fee. Okay, it's like going to the Bassmaster Classic and paying $13 for a beer. Did I do it? Sure. Did I hate it? Sure. Convenience fee. Buying boat fuel that's on the water. A lot of times doesn't have ethanol in it, which is great. It's what you need for boats. However, you can't just buy that 86 down there at the pump on the lake. You're going to be getting that 93, baby, and it's going to be, like Chuck says, $8 to $10 a gallon. Yeah, you might have to have a pond tournament. Go out there and, meet up with your homemade kayaks, because I can't afford one of those daggone things either. Did you guys see that Hobie had a kayak at the Bassmaster Classic? It was $29,000. $29,000. Holy crap. Yeah, Chris, I'm with you. I'm going to fish till the day I die, whether it's on a pond, in a creek, Lake Fork here in a few weeks. It might be my last huge trip for the year. It's going to cost us like $1,000 to get out there and fuel them back. But barring nothing absolutely major happens here, I'm going to Lake Fork, and I'm going to absolutely give it my all to catch my personal best. Again, my personal best right now is about 6.5 pounds. 6.5 pounder out there is average, to say the least. That's like an everyday catch out there. If I can beat my PB, going to be worth the trip too. Ladies and gents, we've had this opportunity to talk for an hour and 1 minute. You guys know that I like to talk for an hour and hop off of here. But with that being said, I'm going to give a shout out to some people that help me here on the channel, give you guys some discounts. Again, none of this stuff is paid promotion. I'm not getting paid by any of these companies to say, hey, Waller, how much is it going to cost me to talk about my product on your show? I just don't do that. Will I ever? Heck, if gas gets to $8 a gallon, $20 is $20, right? Anyway, Mark Hickey has a thing going on right now. ApexFishingApparel.com. Great fishing apparel. Have some lightweight sun hoodies. They have lightweight sun shirts. They have some shorts. A lot of stuff that will keep you warm or dry and cool, not warm, on the lake in the summertime, fishing, out there boating with your family. ApexFishingApparel.com. Use Waller10 to save yourself 10%. And again, I'm not making a quarter on that. Just one of my buddies that I want to help out. Again, go out there and check them out. You may find something you like. You may not. It's up to you. It's all good. Next, JB's Fish Sauce. You guys know, without knowing anything about my channel, if you guys know about it, JB's Fish Sauce has been a partner of this channel for a long time. Just for the simple fact is I used the product to reached out and talked to Jim Block, who was the previous owner of the product, and struck up a conversation and created a really cool personal, relationship with Jim. I started using this product, and then Jim sold out to Corey Weaver and a few other people there in the company, but Corey Weaver is my contact there. And then Corey and I worked together to come out with my signature blend of JB's Fish Sauce, which is known as Pinch of Garlic. It is my own proprietary blend of garlic and crawfish with natural fish oils in here. Do want to talk to you guys something really quick before I hop off here. There's a difference between this and worm oil, like you would put in a bag of worms or a bag of baits that you have. You can use this stuff to marinate some baits that you're going to be using fairly, within a fairly decent amount of time. Don't throw it in there and expect to use it in the springtime, because the real crude fish oils that are in here will actually cause the bait to break down over an extended period of time. But you could, this is a spray. There is a jelly that I really like a lot. This is a 1 ounce spray. I get the 4 ounce spray. It's a lot bigger bottle. Pinch of garlic, again, OALL. That is the letter OALL. On Another Line Live 20 will save you 20% off on jbsfishsauce.com. If you don't want to buy any of that crap, fine by me, fellas, ladies, and gents. It's up to you. They do help me out, so I do like to give a shout out where the shout out is due. Also, if you're in my area, go out and check out Tackle Box in South Point, Ohio. Greg and David Drown out there have an amazing shop. Last time we talked about it, I was talking to somebody. If you're on here, man, I apologize. Hopefully you didn't stop by yesterday to the tackle box. Tackle box has fall, spring hours that I told everybody they're open Monday through Saturday. They are not. They're open Tuesday through Saturday. So if you're looking at the tackle box and you want to go up there and check out some of the stuff, never been there before, don't go on a Sunday or Monday because you're going to be ticked off and you're going to be messaging me like, hey, man, I thought you said the tackle box was open today. I thought they were. But now just know that they are open Tuesday through Saturday. I think they're open till 6 o'clock through the week and 5 o'clock on the weekends, but don't quote me on that. Look them up on Facebook. You will not be disappointed. $100. Yeah, dude, that's what I don't get. My biggest thing about gasoline is Speedway. Let's just say this is a gallon of gas. The truck comes in, fills up 10,000 gallons of gas. In this tank, there's 10,000 gallons of gas. They pay a certain amount for that gas, right? Let's just say that they pay $2 a gallon. So there's $20,000 here in this tank. How come that fuel in that tank gets more expensive even though they purchased it for the same price? I had a guy talk to me one time about owning a business and owning a gas station, and I kind of get it. He says it's to pay for the fuel when you have to refuel the tanks at that point. I don't know. I'm with you. I hope everything goes back down. Wally, buddy, I appreciate it. Thanks for joining in. If you guys, again, have not went over and subscribed to my YouTube channel, I would appreciate it if you would. We are driving to that 4,000 subscriber goal, and I can't do it without you. I'll be doing a big giveaway when I hit 4,000 subscribers. I'm going to give away a G Loomis NRX Plus if I can get one. I've been waiting since July on mine. But G Loomis NRX Plus, the $625 rod, I'm going to give it away to one of you out there, but you have to be subscribed to my YouTube channel. So 1 out of 4,000 chance to have a $600 plus rod. Pretty daggone good chance. So if you haven't subscribed, now will be the time to do it. When I hit 4,000, we're going to give one away. So that being said, sounded like an auctioneer there. Guys, you know the deal. We're an hour and 7 minutes in. If you guys can get out there and lean on them, we'll see you next time on Another Line.